Alright, in this lesson I'm going to be showing you how to divide by polynomials. So let's go ahead and talk about the different parts of division, because it's been a while since maybe you've gone over some of these terms. So now the first thing, notice our first question says, what is division and what are the parts to it? So division is the splitting into equal parts or groups. It is the result of fair sharing. So that's what I want you to think, and that's what I want to come to mind whenever you think of division. We're just trying to make equal groups. Now, with that being said, there are three different parts that go to division. For instance, the part that's on the inside of the division symbol, we call that the dividend. So when you hear me say the word dividend in this lesson, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The part that gets divided into it, we call that the divisor. And our answer, right, the part that we're always looking for, the most important part, we call that the quotient. Now, with that being said, we're going to put some of this to use, and we're going to go ahead and do some division here. So let's take a look at our first question. Notice it says, how can I find the quotient of 2x squared plus 7x plus 7 divided by x plus 2? So I have broken this up into 4 steps for you. So step 1 says put the numerator in as the dividend. So notice my numerator, that's what's on top right here. I'm going to circle it. So I'm going to go ahead and make my little division symbol. I'm going to leave a little room so that we can write the answer on top. And I will write 2x squared plus 7x plus 7. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is step 2 is the denominator as the divisor. So we've got to go ahead and put this denominator, what's on bottom right here, as our divisor. So I'm going to put x plus 2. Then the next step says divide the first term of the divisor into the first term of the dividend. So when you're talking about the first term of the divisor, I want you to be thinking about this x, right? That's our first term is x. And the first term of our dividend is 2x squared. Now, with that being said, what we want to do by dividing is I want you to simply think, what do I need to multiply x by to get it to be 2x squared? So when we say divide, I want you to think about it in that sense, right? Division, multiplication, they have a relationship. So in my head, I look and say, what can I multiply this x to give me 2x squared? And I hope that you realize that there's a 2 as your coefficient, so you're going to have to multiply 2 to the x. But notice it has this x squared. And if you think back to our exponential rules tell us that whenever we multiply variables, you simply add the powers. So this is x to the power of 1, so it would need to be multiplied by x to the power of 1. So I'm going, okay, I got to multiply by 2, and I got to multiply by an x. So I'm going to write that down. So 2x. Now if I take that 2x and I say 2x times x, that's going to give me, by the way, you're going to see me using parentheses here. I like putting what I have in parentheses. I am going to put a subtraction sign, because remember when we do division, we are actually going to go ahead and subtract whatever value is inside of here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my subtraction sign in my parentheses. And then I'm going to fill inside of the parentheses the numbers that I come up with. So 2x times x gives me 2x squared. So I'm going to put 2x squared. Now, notice we didn't pay attention to that second term, that positive 2, when we were trying to figure out what number to multiply by. But we are going to take it into account now that we're ready to go ahead and use 2x as part of our quotient. So I'm going to take this 2x, I multiplied it to x, it gave me 2x squared. I am now going to multiply it to positive 2. And if I have 2 x's and I multiply them by 2, I now have 4 x's. Now I'm going to stop right there. I've done all my math. 2x times x gives me 2x squared. 2x times 2 gives me 4x. Notice I had my negative sign. Now since we are subtracting this, notice any time that there's a negative sign outside a parenthesis, we have to distribute. So what I want to do is I want to take this negative 1 and distribute it to the inside. So that changes my positive 2x squared to a negative 2x squared. And then I also want to distribute it over here to my 4x. So my positive 4x now becomes, I'm going to cross this out, a negative 4x. Now I like to cross out my symbols as I'm changing it because it reminds me that I did not forget to distribute. Because what I see in class is most of the time when somebody is trying to do long division on polynomials, what I find is that they forget to distribute that negative sign, and therefore they make a mistake. So now we're just going to combine like terms from top to bottom. 2x squared minus 2x squared gives me 0. So those two are gone. And then I have 7x minus 4x. Okay, well that's going to leave me with a positive 3x. Now notice, we didn't do anything with the 7. So we're just going to bring that 7 down. And that's a positive 7. So we went ahead, we divided this first part of the dividend, right, by 2x, and we're left with 3x plus 7. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to repeat the process. So let's go ahead and do that again. I have x, and what do I need to multiply x to get 3x's? I hope that you recognize you need to multiply it by 3, and it's going to be a positive 3 because we want it to be the exact same thing. Now I am going to put my parentheses again and put my negative sign on the outside. So positive 3 times x gives me a positive 3x, which is the same thing we have up here, which was our goal. Then 3 times positive 2 is going to give me a positive 6. Now once I do that, I'm going to draw my line underneath, and I want to go ahead and distribute my negative sign. So a negative 1 times 3x gives me a negative 3x. Negative 1 times 6 cancels out that positive sign and makes it negative 6. So if I do 3x minus 3x, that gives me 0. So those do what we call cancel out. They make a 0 set. And then 7 minus 6 leaves me with just 1. Now, I want you to notice this 1 that I have here. This is a remainder. Notice that I have no more x's. There's no more variables. So I'm going to write remainder there. So hopefully you remember that from years in the past when you did long division. So the question might be that you might have right now is, well, we have 2x plus 3, but we have this remainder, Mr. H. What do we do with the remainder? So I want you to think back to math when you're doing it in your earlier years, and whenever you had a remainder, you just put it over the divisor. And that's how you get your final answer. And we are going to do the same thing today. So when we write our final answer, I'm going to go ahead and write what I have up here. I'm going to write my quotient that I have up here, 2x plus 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and write my remainder. Notice my remainder is a positive 1. So I'm going to go, okay, well that's plus 1 over my divisor, which is x plus 2. So what we have, and I probably shouldn't have made that line so long, that might create a little confusion for some of y'all. Just kind of ignore that. What we have for our final answer is 2x plus 3 plus 1 over x plus 2. And that is our final answer. So when we're doing long division on polynomials, sometimes you're going to have a remainder, and sometimes you're not.